When people talk about the richest man in history, who do they usually name? Rockefeller, Bezos, Elon Musk, but the richest being to ever live is someone who a lot of people have never heard of. A black emperor from West Africa in the 1300s. And he was so wealthy that one journey across North Africa crashed the price of gold for 12 years. His name was Mansa Musa, and the story of how that happened starts with the empire that he ruled. Musa ruled the Mali Empire from 1312 to 1337. Mali at that time wasn't just some small kingdom that people barely knew about, it was one of the most powerful empires on earth. Territory larger than Western Europe, sitting directly on top of the trade routes that move gold, salt, ivory and copper across Africa and into the Mediterranean world. Which meant one thing: gold, and an unbelievable amount of it. Now, before we go any further, I knew how it get down. I'll tell you the whole truth, the honest truth. Mansa Musa enslaved people. His caravan to Mecca reportedly included thousands of enslaved people, and early in his reign, there were raids meant to capture people. That's part of the story, it is. But the slavery that existed in the medieval world in Europe, Arabia, Asia and Africa was not the same institution. That will later rebuilt on the bodies of our ancestors in the Atlantic world. Pre-transatlantic slavery was not race-based. And it wasn't structured as a permanent hereditary system that later defined a transatlantic slave trade. That doesn't make it moral. But historically it was different. The transatlantic system introduced something new. The idea that blackness itself justified permanent enslavement. That was not Musa's world, that was the world that came later. So yeah, he did rule in a society that practiced slavery. But he was also the man that would go on to build libraries, universities, and one of the greatest centers of learning the medieval world had ever seen. And the moment that made him famous happened in 1324. That's why Musa decided to make the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, and he didn't travel quietly. His caravan included tens of thousands of people. Soldiers served scholars, architects, poets, and about 100 camels, each carrying hundreds of pounds of gold, and everywhere they stopped, Musa gave it away to the poor, to merchants, to officials, and when he arrived in Cairo, something extraordinary happened. The historian Al-Umari later recorded that Musa distributed so much gold in the city that the value of gold collapsed across Egypt. And it didn't recover for more than a decade. Think about that. One man traveled to a region and shifted the price of gold for 12 years. But the most important part of this story happens after he goes home, because Musa didn't hoard his wealth. He started building mosques, libraries, schools. He brought architects from Cairo and Andalusia to Mali in 1327. He commissioned the Jingarubber Mosque in Timbuktu. It's still standing till today. Several 100 years later, and under Musa's rule, Timbuktu became one of the greatest intellectual centers of the medieval world. Students came from across the continent. Libraries filled with hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, and its height. The city held around 25,000 students. And in Timbuktu, the most valuable thing in the marketplace wasn't gold. It was books. The richest man in the world didn't build a private island, he built a city of learning. And that's the part of history that feels strange when you compare it to modern-day wealth, because now we're used to billionaires telling us they're going to change the world while their workers still rely on food stamps. We're told that extreme wealth is proof of innovation, proof of genius, proof of success. Really, but historically, wealth often came with obligation. In Islamic tradition is called zakat. The idea that a portion of your wealth belongs to the people around you. So Mansa Musa held unimaginable wealth. He built institutions, schools, libraries, public buildings that are still standing 700 years later. Meanwhile, today, the richest men on Earth launch rockets into space, buy social media platforms, and call it progress. Two very different ideas of what wealth is. For Mansa Musa died somewhere around 1337, but his reputation spread far beyond Mali. Now here's the question that always gets me: if people in Europe knew exactly who this man was in the 1300s, how did his name disappear from our classrooms? Because in 1375 European cartographers created one of the most famous maps of the medieval world, the Catalan Atlas, and right there in West Africa, they drew a king sitting on a throne holding a piece of gold in his hand. That king was Mansa Musa.